Hello, gentlemen barbarians. It's the Rooster here. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Occupy Wall Street and the real wealth distribution and how real wealth distribution works through bubbles, the debt bubble cycle. Occupy Wall Street was a big thing in 2011, and it's one of many movements over the years that has tried to deal with income inequality. But how it affects us now in 2016 is very important, because basically the Bernie Sanders movement came out of that. And, Bernie Sanders is a socialist and all that stuff. He's a social democrat. But he's not quite that far left to where he's a socialist, but he has a lot of socialist ideas. And why that's important is because that's now moved Hillary Clinton, who's a solid moderate Democrat, moved her to the left to get his votes and to possibly win the election. We don't know yet. It's still a couple weeks away. But why is that important? Something that happened in 2011 that affected the entire movement that's now affected a presidential candidate is a really important aspect. But we need all of that socialist and social democrat side of it to control the fascism on the right. When you go from Republican a little bit further right to conservative or right conservative, then when you go past conservatism and you get in on the outer edges, you get into fascism, which a lot of people don't realize. Hitler was a fascist. Mussolini was a fascist. Fascists are about a corporate state where the corporations run the government. That's what fascism is. Hitler was a fascist. People say Hitler was a totalitarian dictator, but he really wasn't. He was controlled by industry, and he knew it. So let's talk about this, what I call the fascist debt bubble cycle. This isn't something that's new, people. 1860, 1888, 1929, the fall of the stock exchange. Who made money in 1929? Rich people. When you're eating shoe leather and turnips and potatoes 3 times a day, you don't have money to put into the stock market. But if you're a Rockefeller or a Kennedy, you had money, your house is paid off, you can buy oil by the barrel at 33 cents a barrel. By 1939, it's $25 a barrel. So you make money if you're rich during these bubbles. That's what people have to understand. The real distribution of wealth goes this way. Not the Fox News version where they say, oh, we're paying welfare and food stamps, and why do the rich have to pay all of this, blah, 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 blah. We're talking about the real distribution of wealth through these bubbles. 1974. A lot of younger people don't remember the gas crisis. I remember it. I was very young, but I remember waiting in line with my gas can for 8 or 9 hours to get gas for my mini bike. 1984, the farm crisis. If you were in Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas, 1984, I feel sorry for you. Farms were going belly up left and right. I mean, the government was worried about not having enough food to feed people. And did you hear about it in New York? No. Did you hear about it in Los Angeles? No. But I'll tell you what, Kansas City, Missouri, people were talking about it. And that's where Farm Aid came from. I mean, people don't even remember Farm Aid anymore, but they need those farmers need money. That was a bubble. That was a real estate bubble. Let's see. 1986, we had our first S&L run-in with the banks. And, we put in a bunch of regulations that were later taken out. Tech bubble, 1998. And then, of course, the big one, the real estate bubble, 2006, the one that killed me. I mean, that devastated me. I was a landlord in 2006. I was in real estate. And you think it's bad losing one house, try losing an apartment complex worth $1.3 million. But let's talk about the real redistribution. The real redistribution happens this way. And let me explain to you how a bank can get paid 3 times for one property. Let's say it's 1986. I buy a house for $100,000. Okay? I put new roof on it, central air, wood floors, wall side windows, new doors, alarm system, finished basement, new garage. I put all of this money into it because it's my house, right? Here's a little secret. It's not my house yet. So 1996 rolls around. I've paid that house off. I've paid the $100,000 off. I'm just making interest payments at this point. 2006 rolls around. Worst case scenario, the real estate bubble hits. I can't make my I lose my job. I can't make my last 3 mortgage payments, 5 mortgage payments, whatever. I've paid $250,000 into this house without just in interest and principal for 20 years. The bank's more than made its money. It's made its money 2 times over. But it's not my house because the mortgage isn't paid off. So they take it away from me. So the bank got paid once. That's the first one. Now what happens? I'm homeless. I'm on the street. I'm living in my truck, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm out $100,000 principal and $150,000. So who comes in? Somebody rich. During a real estate bubble, who's going to buy that house? The bank immediately puts it back up for sale. They look at this house and all the things, and they immediately put it back up for sale. A week later, it sells. They sell it for what it's worth now, $250,000. So they got paid once by me, plus my interest. Now a rich dude comes in, buys my house with all the upgrades for $250,000. The bank got paid twice now. 2 people bought that house. The rich guy doesn't have a mortgage. He buys it cash, let's say. And he gets all the upgrades. So who's out? I'm out $250,000. The bank got my $100,000 principal, $150,000 interest, $250,000, and another $250,000 from the rich guy. So the bank has now made $500,000 on their $100,000 investment because they get the asset back. The rich guy, he's broke even, but he has a $250,000 asset. So the bank's been paid twice. Now you say, where's the third one? Now here's the third one. The bank goes belly up. George Bush signs TARP. So now I, who am flat broke, $250,000 down in assets, and the bank's $500,000 up in assets, have to pay the bank out of my taxes to bail the bank out. And the bank's the one that made me homeless. Now, how does that work? The bank got paid 3 times. Once by me, plus interest. Once by the rich guy who bought my house when it got foreclosed on. And the third time by my tax dollars for TARP. Which way did the money flow? I'm down $250,000 in 20 years. The rich guy in the middle is broke even, but he's sitting on a $250,000 asset with all of my upgrades in it, all my hardwood floors and new roofs. And the bank is up $750,000. Okay, the money went this way. It got redistributed up to the bank. So that's the debt bubble cycle that I call it. And it's like the Matrix. There's a thing in the Matrix where the guy's sitting there, the police guy, is talking to Neo, and he says, you know, this is the 7th time that we've redone the Matrix. This is the 7th time because you guys keep figuring out a way to fix it. And that's what Occupy Wall Street is doing. You know, they're screaming, they're pointing, yelling, and then they're, you know, going through the living room with a baseball bat and smashing things up. But then the corporations just come in and say, oh, that's cute. Pat them on the head, pick them up, take them out in the yard, put them in a playpen, take the bat away from them, and then they just casually walk back in the living room and pick up the thing, and then 10 years later, they're back doing the same thing again. How they're trying to fix this is there's a two-pronged attack that they're doing. One is they're trying to do Citizens United, which is one person, one vote, and money is not speech. And I've done a video on that already. That's the one. The 100 is 100 times your least paid employee. Corporations, CEOs can only make 100 times their least paid employee. That's the two prongs. 100. I say we add a third prong. And the third, and the metaphor that I used before about picking up the little baby, putting him out in the playpen in the yard, and just going back through and picking up the living room and all the pieces calmly and not worrying about it, is because corporations have something that we don't, and that's economies of scale. Okay? Economies of scale is like having an army. You wouldn't let 40,000 Chinese walk in across the land bridge and invade the United States, but you let Walmart have 40,000 employees. You let General Electric have 120,000 employees. That's an army. You understand? That's an army of employees. They're not worried about legal legislation that you put in unless you put in limitations. Okay? That's why I say the third prong should be the 1,000. The 100, 1,000. One man, one vote. That's the first one. Second one is 100 times the least paid employee. And the third one is limit employees to 1,000. And this isn't anywhere. This is my own personal idea. A corporation can't have more than 1,000 employees. Period. Now, that's out there. That's, people say, wow, that's crazy. Well, you know, why would you do that? Well, 1,000 employees is going to create so much competition. You think about Walmart, it has 40,000 employees. If you made that law, they would immediately have to come up with 40 subsidiaries. And they have to appoint CEOs, board of directors for those 40 subsidiaries. And they'd only, and those 1,000 employee subsidiaries would only be able to control maybe 5 stores each. So they would become local. And what that's going to do is breed competition. There's only so many Walmart, nephews and nieces and uncles to be CEOs. So it's going to have to move, the money's going to have to move outside the family. They're going to have to hire a Robbie. They're going to have to hire a Smith. You know, they're going to have to hire a Lloyd to go in and be a CEO and run this company, and they're going to immediately create their own competition. And if we did it with the telephone companies, we did it with the power companies, anything you do this with, it breeds competition. And competition lowers prices and increases value. The reason that they can pick up Occupy Wall Street and put them in a playpen out in the backyard and not worry about it is because they're monopolies. They're not worried about a bunch of kids in a park in New York running around screaming and yelling, because they know 10 years from now it'll be forgotten and they can go back to business as usual. But if you limit the number of employees that a corporation can have, it limits the amount of profit that they can make to dump into politics to control the political realm. They have to concentrate on their business, which is what they should be doing. Okay, so how do we stop the cycle? 100, 1,000. Limit corporations to 1,000 people. Increase competition. It's the only way to do it. They have economies of scale. The only way that we can stop it is to take those economies of scale away. If you don't believe me, watch Shark Tank on Friday nights. Great show. But the first thing that every single one of them sharks says to the people in the Shark Tank is this scalable? Is this scalable? And the reason that they say that is because they know that's how you make huge sums of money. Economies of scale, where you're not working and there's 40 or 50,000 people working for you on an assembly line. That's how you make more money than you need. So, as always, if you disagree with me, feel free to put it down in the comment section. I love hearing about it. I love hearing other people's ideas. This, of course, is my own idea. If you disagree with me, great. I love it. I love dissent. And as always, take it easy.